Calling.
Hey guys,
Hey y'all.
Hey guys.
Hey everyone,
it's your girl Money KO.
It's Winter Joelle.
it's me, Dee.
And it's Tanaijah Jallana, and I am your host for today's episode. First, we just want to welcome you back. Welcome. We appreciate you guys sticking with us, thus far. It's been quite a journey, and we're how many episodes in at this point? I don't know, but we made it past 10, so that's all that matters.
I know that's right.
Right.
So we're just grateful to the community that has been supporting us. So I just want to say that. With that out of the way, we're going to just go ahead and jump right into the conversation. Not too long ago, we discussed the hustle culture and the big old beast that it's become amongst our generation. And so I took some time just thinking through that topic and that conversation. And then other questions started coming up for me. And I just thought about the fact that we as people tend to romanticize the struggle in all areas of our life. I feel like you hear the phrase, I got it out the mud, and they wear that as a badge of honor. Not saying that you should not. Proud of you. You did what you had to do. And that, that is what it is. But then you have the next person who may have been fortunate enough to be put in situations that they didn't have to get it out the mud. But unfortunately, then they aren't allowed to wear the badge of honor as the same way that the person who got it out the mud did. So I just kind of wanted to deep dive into that. In different sectors of our life, not just in the workplace and things like that, but also in the relationships that we experience through life. And why is it okay, or why is it glorified that your man or your woman did you wrong for 10 years and you still sticking by him? And that's like, oh yeah, you're the number one female gold star husband.
Not
No,
okay.
Not okay.
Not okay at all.
So I think that's kind of where I want to start. I think I want to start there, right? In the relationships. I think that's kind of going to be my first question. And let's just get into the conversation. Why do we act like love has to be painful to be real? Why do we brag about, just losing sleep, even over work and stuff like that? Why is struggle seen as like a rite of passage?
So for me, I do feel like the main part on why I struggle on doing certain stuff is me just being overly stressed and just being an overthinker. What is I saying? An overthinker.
I like that word. It was cute.
Like, I feel like I'm such an overthinker when it comes to anything that I'm pursuing or doing in life. So I feel like that is definitely a big factor for me on why I overly stress on things that don't need to really be stressed for or not show so much for, because there's things that we can't control. So
I definitely get that. But Tanaijah, you saying that and the way that you worded it just reminded me of Summer Walker's song Session 32. And when I tell you I wore that song out, because baby, when she ever did say, you don't know what love is because you don't stay up all night crying.
I still play that song in that car. So
my girl was singing her heart out.
She knew she was, because she was on that stage crying, okay. And the whole crowd was yeah,
was crying with her right through the screen.
I actually just saw that on TikTok. Like that she was in London and she was boo-hooing pregnant.
Talking about love letters. Sidebar before I get into my whole point of bringing that up. Miss Summer, your music is love letters, baby, and I'm appreciative, All right. Next concert, because you don't really publicize when you performing live all that often, hit your girl up. Let me know. I want to be there. That's it. All right. But it really did remind me of that song. And there was a time in my life where those lyrics hit way heavier than they do now, right? I don't necessarily think that if you don't stay up, the way that I thought about the song then is very different than the way that I think about the lyrics of the song now. When I first heard the song, it was more so the pain of love, the pain of the process of being in love, because the act of love and being in love are two very different things. And that's a whole nother conversation that I would love to get into. But the pain of being in love is not necessarily what you should be striving for. It's not how you should quantify how much you love somebody, by how deeply you are hurt when things aren't going the way they're supposed to be. And for the majority of my life, I thought about it very differently, in the sense of, this is hurting me too much that this can't be it. And I think it becomes a very toxic cycle, and both men and women, I feel like, are very susceptible to it, to where they feel like the more intense the emotion, often negative because they stick harder, the more in love you are. And baby, that is not the truth. We just gonna end that
You have been
response with
lied
that.
to.
You have been lied to.
Mm-hmm.
You have been lied to. Mm-mm.
I'm used to being lied to.
Girl.
Please. Okay, so with that being said, at what point do you choose, speaking from your own obviously personal experience, at what point then do you choose, that this tussle of emotions and the up and down and the mistreatment, the disrespect, all of that, at what point do you choose that this is not worth my energy? This was a waste of my time. You are a waste of my time. All of the above.
First and foremost, y'all gotta prioritize being self-aware. Because in that season of my life where I was validating being in love by how intense it felt, good or bad, I wasn't being very self-aware. I was more so absorbed in the relationship, absorbed in the other person, obsessed in the concept of love and being loved. But the moment where my self-awareness kicked back in, like, what's going on here, sis? What's going on here, Bookie Book? Because this ain't it. So first and foremost, you got to prioritize being self-aware, because if you are self-aware, your alarms will start to sound like, this ain't it. And I think when you lack that self-awareness, it's very hard to tell anybody when it's time to turn it around or call it quits. Self-love, self-awareness, those two go hand in hand. But for me, it was more than anything my self-awareness, that you're losing sight of self and you're becoming overly focused and centered on the relationship. But the relationship is an extension of you. You are not an extension of the relationship. So
Yes, I completely agree with that. I do feel like for me was definitely the same thing as well. Self-awareness for sure. But sometimes I did realize growing up is that people just need to go through their own things to really understand themselves, because no matter how many advice or how many things that people can tell you that, oh, their opinions on certain stuff that you're going through, you're just not going to listen. You're going to do what you want to do. And at this point in time, people just really need to go through that. And sometimes when it comes to like friends going through that situation, or even yourself, like, you just need to step back and really realize what is going on, and are you worth what you're going through? Like, what's your worth? You need to know your worth for sure.
Now I'm singing that song. This is terrible. Over here bopping my head.
For me personally, I feel like out of every one of us, I definitely had the most experience for sure when it comes to dealing with others that have not been worth my time and effort. And
Are you sure? I think me and you are hand in hand.
It's just not. I think we're done.
Amani, I literally. What was grade? Was this 7th grade, 8th grade? My boyfriend, like I'm doing quotation marks because 7th, 8th grade doesn't really count as boyfriend, but the person I was with at that time quite literally cheated on me by having intercourse with someone in the school park. Okay, so I've started off my rep game.
It's not funny,
on a
guys.
downward
We do not
slope.
laugh at
Like
people's pain.
I started going downhill from get-go. There has yet to be an up. Like I'm on the up and up right now, as of like right now today, February 4th, 2025. Like this is where my up and up begins, because ever since then, I've been nosediving straight down with each and every person that I am allowed to waste my time. And I feel like
live in your truth.
Honestly, and each time I feel like I literally am so quick and easy. Like something happens to me, I'm out. I'm not doing this. Like I know for a fact that I've always known I'm a one strike type of person. The person that I'm supposed to be with wouldn't treat me that way. Like they wouldn't do things like that to me. I'm just a very loyal person through and through. Like loyalty is my number one. So if I wouldn't do that, I really don't tolerate someone else doing things like that to me. So I, for sure, am fortunate and lucky enough to always be self-aware in that way where I'm like, nope, it's not happening. There's only one person I have given a chance to, and it feels reasonable. It's been definitely difficult because I have never, ever, kind of given someone a second chance. I'm normally like, strike one, you're out, especially if you're like lying about it too. I think how truthful and like when you do your own investigation and stuff, and like I feel like all of that plays a part in it. I feel like for me, for the first time, I felt like, okay, this person might be worth effort of this happened. Let's attempt and keep it pushing. But all the other times I had an initial instant, like, no, it's over. It's clipped. We're not doing this. You're a dub. Don't talk to me kind of vibes. But yeah, that's kind of my perspective. I feel like women's intuitions are so real, and especially again, this, like you guys said, it definitely stems from how self-aware you are, because if you aren't really self-aware, you really wouldn't be in tune with your intuitions that well. But if you kind of get it, you just know, like you just know when you probably should not continuously be doing something. And your confidence definitely plays a part on whether you're going to keep allowing things to happen to you or if you're going to just keep, move on.
Or just being delusional, because
I love all of that.
I've had my moments of delusional states, girl. And I tell you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We need a full episode.
Yes.
I'm like, but maybe it wasn't like that. Maybe it wasn't like that. But it was like that.
No, she's talking about what she was telling herself to get her through those moments.
No, I know. And I'm saying,
crazy.
What do you mean?
Right. Crazy.
Like, it's crazy because it's like before I even went through those situations, I was so stuck on myself on saying like I would never go through that. I would never put myself in that position to ever be in that. But then once you're actually in that, it's like you don't even realize that you're
Very
actually in that. Like, it's like a sinking hole. Like, you're literally sinking in sand, honestly. Like, that's how I can describe it. And I'm like,
that's a great describtion, by the way.
Like, it's like you trying to step,
yeah.
but you ain't stepping nowhere because you just going down. You ain't going up.
Yeah, so you're quite literally in quicksand. Like,
right, literally, like
the more you move, the more you go down.
Like what Drake said, going down, down, down. Yeah.
This gonna be another playlist with the group chat.
We have to keep track of every song that has ever been mentioned on any episode and literally make a running playlist.
Absolutely.
100%.
But really quickly, to give a more concrete answer, because I think that a lot of our answers were very ambiguous, because I think every individual experience will determine when it's time for that person to make that shift and that turnabout. But as a rule of thumb, I always say, if your mind space is becoming consumed with something other than yourself, and not in like the vain, oh, I'm perfect, the world revolves around me kind of way, but more so in the, all right, well, I have to get this done today because I'm trying to get here in life, or I'm trying to achieve this goal, or I really just don't feel good today. I need to take a minute. But if in those moments your thoughts are now becoming, okay, I don't feel good, but he still wants me to do this, or I don't feel good, but she still wants me to do this, or I want for him to get here in life, or I want for her to get here in life, or I want for us to be here. If your mind is becoming consumed with that, it's time to about face, because it should always first and foremost be your source, you, everything else after.
I love that answer. And while we were discussing that, something that popped in my mind is, okay, so when people are, whether in a new relationship, freshly married, and you hear the phrase, or they ask the questions, have you guys gotten into your first big argument yet? Or have you, experienced that and this, that, and the third? And I understand that some people are just coming from a place of, do you guys know how to resolve conflict, right? Okay, that's one thing. But I think something that is a little bit triggering for me with that is, why is there this notion that real love has to be tested by suffering in order to know if it'll stand the test of time? I don't know. And that just may be me living in Delulu land, feeling like it should not take all of that. Not saying obviously getting into argument, because you're going to have disagreements, but it shouldn't take the depth of suffering that some people imply that you have to experience before you know that you have a long-lasting marriage or relationship before you.
I agree. And I really don't like that. I don't like it at all. Because I feel like a majority of the time it's not coming from a place of wisdom. It's coming from a place of projection, in the sense that in my personal experience, a lot of times this question has been asked by somebody who is well into their livelihood, have lived for quite a while.
Quite some time, for sure.
Yes. Been around the sun a couple times. But they're single. They're single.
Typically.
Not even mingling properly, or they're in a very unfulfilled relationship. And it's not passing judgment. It's quite literally one of those things where I could see it. I see a red cup. I could tell you the cup is red. Like, it's not, oh, I'm making assumptions. You can tell by the way that she looks at him every time he says something that it's not hitting. But I just don't like that question. And majority of the pretenses that it's asked in.
I've been seeing on social media that there's this quote going around. It's not verbatim, but like, the potential you see in others is just basically what you want them to do for you, or it's not even about them. Because seeing potential in someone doesn't even mean that they're even able to make that happen or get to that potential. People typically show you who they are, and you're either going to accept what they look like right in front of your face, or you're going to get tested a bunch of times until you realize it. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's my thought.
Yeah, you can hear me. I can see it working. Oh, if y'all waiting for me to say something, I don't have nothing to say.
Wait.
All I was saying was, no, you made perfect sense. That was it.
Okay, before we kind of shift perspectives in this conversation, I want to ask, how do we, not just as women, men and women, how do we determine when a relationship is worth fighting for versus when it's time to walk away? And I say that even in comparison to the last statement that I made about the, being asked, have you guys had your first big argument? And I do understand, again, some people are coming just from a place of, do you guys know how to conflict resolve? But then there's the other side of that, which we discussed. So I do believe that there is going to be some sense of I'll just say turmoil for like lack of a better word at the moment, some sense of turmoil in the relationship that you have to, persevere through. But at what point does the perseverance become worth it, and it's not giving you the option of, okay, it's time for me to leave, but it feels as though there's perseverance there and you're making traction? But how do you know that that's happening? What signs are we looking for? Different things like that.
I feel as though it has a lot to do with, one, the boundaries you set in place within your relationship. Like, did this conflict affect your boundaries that you've set in place? Or if it did, or if it didn't, in what ways is your partner making steps to progress and like making those changes? So say you have conflict and, there's something about, like, I'm just going to give an example, like someone's not texting you back, and you've talked about it a bunch of times. And at this point, it's been like a year and they still aren't doing it. And it's something that small where they just don't text you back. You probably should not still be with this person. Now, say this person, like, on occasion doesn't text you back right away, but you've seen the changes that they've made to make, pay more attention to when your messages are coming in, or, like, and they're responding with, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I was washing the dishes, so I really couldn't respond right at the moment." But, you see the attempt and the adjustments and the change. I think that probably is a little more worth your time and effort to work through that. But if you're not seeing any changes or any adjustments from the things that you've talked about or things that you want to grow from, then I think that's when
Yeah, definitely more so
Yeah.
on being stagnant and nothing's progressing or improving.
I definitely agree. But as soon as you said that question, 4 big things popped into my mind in regards to when you know whether or not it's worth it to persevere through, or when it's not worth it and it's time to throw in the towel. But the first thing that came to mind was that this is absolutely a question that can only be answered on an individual basis. This is not a one-size-fits-all answer. I don't care what guru you talk to. I don't care what relationship coach, expert, therapist that you talk to, because everybody is different. Every relationship is different. Doesn't matter how similar you are to the next couple. Your relationship is entirely different from theirs because you are 2 completely different people. So that's the first thing. It's definitely an individualized kind of situation, right? And the second thing is, are your needs being met? And I'm not talking about, oh, I need him to be 6'5", nice smile, deep dimples. Yeah, that's all I really got for that list. But are your needs being met? Do you feel fulfilled in this relationship? And I'm not talking about the sense of fulfillment that you get from a career by knocking over, the totem poles and going from the next goalpost to the next goalpost. But do you truly feel a deep sense of fulfillment with this person? Not to say that they're perfect, but when you're with them, you feel a deep sense of contentment, right? Then needs being met in the sense of, does he listen to you? Does she listen to you? Do you feel understood by this person? Outside of the conflict, because you get more than one person in the room, it's going to be conflict. Shoot, it could be me in a room by myself and it might be conflict because I'm mad at what I just did and I know I'm not supposed to act like that. But yeah, and it's an individualized basis question. Are your needs being met? Are you fulfilled? And then the last thing is connection, not attachment. And I think this is a conversation that needs to be talked about more, because there are a lot of people in relationships right now just because they don't want to be alone. They don't necessarily connect or don't have a connection with the person that they're in a relationship with, but they are attached to that person because they are fearful of being alone. That is a problem. If you really look at the person that you're with and you take a moment to sit with yourself and decide or come to terms with, am I truly connected to this person, or am I just attached to them for whatever the reason may be? If you don't have connection, throw in that towel, because it doesn't matter what you do. It won't work long term. It's always going to feel like there's something missing. There's always going to be a void to be filled, and they're never going to be up to par.
I feel like people also connect with other people from trauma bonding. I feel like that's also definitely a big factor as well. Like they won't really have a connection. They're just so emotionally attached to each other because they went through the same thing. And it's okay to, talk to somebody or vent to someone that's been through the same thing that you've been through. But when it gets to a certain point, there should be no reason that you guys are only together because of your trauma. Like there has to be other stuff that comes into play with that.
Right. Because what happens when you guys are both, or when one person's healed and the other person isn't? Then what does your relationship stand on?
No, that's so true.
Drainage.
Literally.
No, that's a fact.
I'm just sucking the life out of me at this point.
No, that's true. And even with that being brought up, it made me think back to Deke saying one very specific word, and that was loyalty. And I think if you do get into a situation, right, let's say, and you trauma bond with someone, for instance, at a certain point, I think there then becomes a sense of loyalty to that person. So now if I am the healed person and I'm holding on to the loyalty that I had with that other person because I know what they've been through, or I can relate to where they've been and this and that, and now I've endured all of these things with them, I think what we really have to get to, just as people in general, is shifting the mindset and the verbiage around the word loyalty. And
yes, ma'am.
Meaning that loyalty is not about enduring pain. That is not what loyalty means. Loyalty is about the mutual respect and effort that is put in between, whether that's the two people, whether that's me and my job, whether that's me and another party, entity, whatever it may be. I think that we, unfortunately, have been brought up by this ideology that loyalty means you endure it all and you stick it out to the end. And that's just not, you've been lied to. That's just
100%.
That's the phrase for this episode. You have been lied to.
You have been lied to, baby.
But
forget what they told you. It's not true.
So that kind of brings me to the next thing that I want to touch on. Because I think not only do we find ourselves being loyal to, people that we develop relationships with, both romantic, platonic, but I think that we also develop that loyalty with the places that we work. And I feel like, and we touched on a lot of this during the hustle culture conversation, but I'm really trying to figure out the best way to go about saying this, but I just feel like, I don't know. If you are in a place where you are, let me start off by asking this to the ladies. Do you guys feel as though struggle really builds character, or is that something that we've just been programmed to believe, from generations and generations?
I 100% believe that struggle does build character, but I think the threshold of what struggle is different for every person. My struggle is different from Tanaijah's struggle. Tanaijah's struggle is different from Amani's struggle, and Amani's struggle is different from Deke's struggle. Like, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. And I really think that is also the theme of this conversation. It's not a one-size-fits-all. You don't got to get it out the mud if you were born and raised in the suburbs, upper middle class, with, maybe not silver, but like you had a sterling
right
spoon, like you had a plated spoon. It's okay. Your struggle is different from mine. Your struggle might have been the fact that your mental tenacity wasn't all the way there. And you dealt with different mental adversities. They might not have been economic, but your struggle is still a struggle. So I absolutely think that it does build character, because without being tested, you don't really know what you're made of. And I think that's something that we've touched upon in a previous episode. But you also don't know what you're capable of. And so the same way when you go to the gym, you got to lift heavier and heavier weights to get stronger. It's the same thing with life. You have to go through some things, and it doesn't have to be catastrophic, but.
So do you think that in some way we put ourselves through something hard basically just to prove ourselves? Like
Yes.
You think that it's really the sole reason that sometimes like I'm gonna stick this out just to say that I could do it?
Yes. And I think that while you were talking about loyalty, the one thing that I kept thinking for me, because a personal model for me, I learned this, I feel like too late, but other people feel like I've learned it very early because they are quite literally 20 decades my senior, and they're like, no, baby, you ahead of the game. But they tell you that respect is earned, right? But what they don't tell you is that loyalty is based on respect. You don't attach your loyalty or devote your loyalty to somebody that you do not respect, because 9 times out of 10, if you don't respect them, they don't respect you. That is what we call blind loyalty. It's stupid, quite frankly. It's going to get you hurt. But I honestly, 100%, yes, because respect is earned and so is loyalty. So anything outside of that, or doing it just for the sake of what you think is going to make you better, it's not advantageous to anyone.
I can agree. There definitely has to be some driving force, right? So I do think a lot of times it does end up coming from a place of, whether proving it to yourself or proving it to other people. Just kind of saying like, you know what, I stuck this out. I did this. I accomplished this. And I don't want it to come across as though I have a problem with people, who got it out the mud or anything of that sort. I come from a lineage of people who got it out the mud. I'm just fortunate enough to not have had to get it out the mud to the extent that they had to. Still have to figure some things out on my own, but I definitely, got that little one leg up. And my plan is to give, my children 3 legs up, and then so on and so forth. So not that I have anything against that. Yeah, but I just don't relate to that idea of looking down on those who were just more fortunate than you were, or whose families were born into money. It is nothing that they could do. Okay? Listen, it wasn't their choice, wasn't their option. You know what I mean? So why are you mad?
Right. Just like we were talking about before, everyone has their own paths that they're going on and own journeys that they need to be on to really understand why they're going through what they're going through to get to where they need to be.
Okay, so with us talking about that, and all of us, being from a, from this within the same culture, why is it that our culture for so long, and this is obviously, I want us to tap into our theoretical brains and just coming up with some theories here, because I'm genuinely curious. Why is it that our cultures it's one of the cultures, I know it happens in others, but our culture is one of the cultures that emphasizes the struggle more than some, alternative ones?
We quite literally have struggled our entire being in our culture. So
Which I understand, but I feel like that would then give you the want to not put the emphasis on it for those that come after you, if that makes sense.
But not all the time. Some people have never even seen the light at the end of the tunnel. So that, yes, to an extent, like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, for me, that makes me not want to do certain things so my children will not be in certain situations. Yeah, but not everyone lives that way, and not everyone has seen like the grass being greener, or the grass even being green where they are. So yes, but also like just not everyone's like that, and everyone, you know, we're put in as like, first of all, being Black, we quite literally have been taught to be how we are now. And there's some that are fortunate enough to grow out of that stigma, but not everyone is capable of doing that, and will continue to fuel the fire that's already lit by being, not changing or breaking generational curses, they say, or generational whatever it is. I feel like I can't really speak for those that have that mindset, that are so tunnel vision on what they're used to and their norm. Because for me, I know that I'm not just going to be stuck where I am, and I'm dang sure not going to allow my child to be touched anywhere near what I've experienced ever. You know what I mean? But like, quite literally, not everyone is like that. And I don't know the thought process of someone that feels that way. Like, I don't know what would make them want to be stuck like that, because I know for sure when it comes to struggling, I don't want to be struggling with nothing. I don't want to be struggling with my life, and I dang sure don't want to be struggling in no relationship with nobody. I don't want to be doing that. Like, I don't want to be working hard, like,
Right.
to do, like, I want to work hard. That sounds wrong.
No,
but, like,
I get what you're saying.
I don't want to work harder than working hard to just, make my dreams happen. But actually putting myself in struggle, no, like, absolutely not.
Right.
Like, no interest to do that at all. Like, not one bit.
Yeah, I definitely understand that, because for me, I don't be wanting to struggle, but God got other plans for me. I'm not seeing it yet. I'm not seeing it yet.
I'm sorry, but he definitely has a plan for you.
He definitely does, and I really hope it's a big one. It needs to be my biggest one, because I definitely understand you. Like, right now, people are not even seeing the end of the tunnel, and they don't understand what it looks like at the end of the tunnel. Because I personally don't know what it looks like at the end of the tunnel. So it's like, right now, when it comes down to what we're experiencing on dealing with trying to get to where we need to get to, for me, it really, most of it is involving struggling to get there. Like, I have to struggle to get there, even though I don't want to, but that's where God is putting me in to succeed in life and to be where I want to be at. So I feel like I hate it, but I can't really do much about it. I don't know. Because I get you, D. I do not want to struggle at all. I don't want to struggle with nothing at all. Like, I just want to be handed it to me. But, we all not like everybody else. Other people grow up with stuff being handed it to them, and they didn't need to struggle at all to get to where they need to get to. And that's good for them. But other people are going through other stuff. So it's like, I feel like for me, they can't really say that not that they didn't earn being where they're at, but they didn't really go through the hard part to get to where they're at, if you know what I mean.
And realistically, I understand. Sorry, before you go, I'm going to say this really quick. Realistically, I understand that. And I think there's a few things that you said that popped in my mind. I'm going to say really quick so that Winter can go. Firstly, in terms of you saying, I know God has a plan, which he does, but a lot of times situations that we end up in, just like in the Bible, it talks about, a thorn being in your side. And sometimes he's not going to remove the thorn because that's the only way that you're going to stay close to him. That's just what that is. Sometimes you are not saying you specifically, but sometimes people have to stay in this cycle and he won't take it out, because if that's what's going to be the one thing that draws you nearer to him, that thorn is going to stay, baby. It ain't nothing else you can do about it. Okay. Because the ultimate goal is for you to draw near to God. So, hey, get right with the Lord. But anyways, on the other thing I was going to say
is, get right with the Lord. Amen. Yes, ma'am.
But the other thing I was going to say was that I definitely understand what you're saying in terms of, you know, they not saying that they don't belong, that they didn't earn where they are, but that, you know, some people had to have it harder. But I just feel like now there are some people who are places where they surely don't belong.
Okay.
100%.
We ain't gonna call them out though.
I wasn't gonna
Not
be the
gonna
one to
call
say
them
it.
out.
I was not gonna be the one to say
But
it,
there
but
are.
first.
Okay. There is such thing as Nepo babies and different things like that.
Love that for y'all, by the way.
Yeah, love that for y'all. But when I think the main thing that irks me is if you are a Nepo baby or, you know, different terms for somebody in that category, and you end up in places that you're just really not qualified for, that's something different. There are plenty of people who, you know, are fortunate enough to be in situations, you know, went to great schools, studied, educated themselves, and went on to do great things. And yes, they didn't have to work super, super hard for it. They may have had Uncle, Auntie, Susie, and Tommy from, you know, down the block who owns a business and now they're a CEO, but they're qualified for that job. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's for me where I kind of draw the difference when it comes to that situation. Because I don't want my kids, I want Auntie Susie and Tommy's cousin from 3 blocks over to help my child get a job too, but they will be qualified for that job. 100%.
It's like going through the struggle for our kids so they won't have to go through the struggle. So that's
exactly right. Exactly right. I honestly agree with sentiment shared by everyone. First and foremost, I'm not subscribing to any kind of struggle, baby. That's not what I want. The only struggles that I want are the ones that I choose. If I'm trying to lose this weight, I'm a struggle in that gym. I chose that struggle. Okay. That's it.
Right.
But to get back to the question, I really feel like historically, I feel like there's a cultural problem. I'm be the one to say it. I feel like there is a cultural problem within our culture. And don't get me wrong, I love my people. I love my people down. I mean, I bleed black. Let me stop. But historically and systemically today, we have to work harder than our counterparts to get half of the accolades. And I'm not even talking about get half of what they have. I mean, just to get acknowledged for what we do. Forget what the end result is. And historically, that is our story in this country, in many countries across the world, unfortunately. And it's very recent history at that. Because Jim Crow happened when? Desegregation happened when? So there's that part of it, right? And I feel like for something that was that demoralizing to a people, it's very hard to say, just get over it. It was 70 years ago. Okay. My grandmother's 76. I still look at that woman every day in her face. It's still very prevalent in our lives. And then we have situations like what's going on right now with the reversal of some things. And don't get me wrong, I see both sides of the argument, but we are still this is still being thrown back in our face every day. So I feel like for our elders, it is a very real thing of not being able to detach from that storyline for us, right? But then I also feel like the real cultural problem is the fact that what is being done in other cultures, primarily, I'm going to talk about the Jewish culture because it's something that's very publicized. The perception of hard work is different. It's very different. It's expected, but it's also rewarded. And it's not in a sense, and it's never, I don't want to say it's never, every household is different, but oftentimes when you hear it talked about, it's not in a demoralizing way, as if you aren't worth what you're achieving because you didn't put the work in. It's good job. And I see you worked hard as HE double hockey sticks, right? Then there's also the conversations that happen at the dinner table and in the house. We don't talk about wealth. We don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about sustainability. We don't talk about career planning. We don't talk about family. Like the conversations that are not happening at the dinner table play a very large role into how we will systemically continue to be behind. And it's not even the other people at this point, it's us. And I think that's kind of why the conversation is shifting to, all right, we're tired of hearing about it. Like, when are we going to look at the common denominator here? We've reached a point in our history, because this will be history 50 years down the road, where it's in our hands. It's now our responsibility to shift the dynamic for the next coming generations. And then my last thing is, I think for a lot of us, and even still in our generation, Gen Z, that there's this kind of cliff effect. When you start to achieve anything, right, and you're at this pivotal point where you're either improving your speech or you're improving your bank account and your wealth is growing, where you start to feel like you're losing your identity in where you came from and who you are as a Black American, because a lot of our identity is tied to the struggle, unfortunately, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And so I feel like a lot of times you'll start to see people regress because they don't want to lose that sense of self. And then you have the other part where our people are now looking at them like, oh, you're not one of us anymore. I think that needs to stop too. That's also a really, really big problem. We're never going to get anywhere.
Stop doing that.
So, yeah.
Like, please stop doing that. That's such a great point. I just don't like that. I don't like that whole you're a sellout thing.
Like, get with me.
Get with me. Like, let me reach my hand down and pull you up. But if you calling me a sellout, I don't want to help you. I wouldn't want to help you either.
Nothing to do with you.
So I just don't understand why it's the first thing that our community decides to go to is, you know, they're not one of us. They're sellout. They chose the white man. Let's just say what it is.
And nice things are not just for white people. Can we stop that?
You need to stop that too.
Can we stop 100%.
That? 100%. Because why do they own everything in your mind? I don't understand.
I mean, they do, but like, be delusional until we own it. Like,
they do own a lot of stuff now, but I'm saying in terms of why do they own all the things that's good? Like whether that's properly, like we've talked about before, or different things like that. How why is that associated? I get the history of why it was associated with them, but come on now, 2025.
It definitely needs to be a perception switch or shift.
Yes.
Starting with that hard work is not innately bad. Like, it's okay to work hard, but let's stop putting the connotation of, let's stop saying that just because you're working hard, you're struggling. That's really also not helping us get anywhere.
Agreed. 100%. Were you about to say something, Imani?
I forgot.
It happens so quick that you just Okay, so I have a question then with all this talk. Have you ever found yourself judging someone for taking the easy route in whatever the situation may be?
No. I personally have not. I actually, something that I really work hard on is trying not to judge others. Like, even if I have a moment that slips, I'll catch myself and be like, you know what, that is not my place to judge them. Like, that is their life. That is not my life. But I think it's really important for us to not judge. Like, literally the only person that can be judging someone is God. And I am not him. So I've really aimed to have a judgment-free lifestyle. Like, I don't want to be judging anybody. And when it comes to if they are choosing, quote unquote, the easier route out, toodles to you. I'm happy you got one. now maybe you can pass one this way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, congrats. Like, that's your life. But just, slide it a little bit to the left for the next person too. Let me know. Give me the tea. But I don't think I've ever sat there and like judged someone for making that conscious decision to, like go into the family business and then take over that. Like, no, like if that's the way you want your life to play out, great. If you want to go a whole other route and your family can take care of you, amazing. You know what I mean? But yeah.
I agree. I just ask that you don't lie, cheat, and steal. That's just my request.
Right. That's
I'm
fair.
not necessarily judging you. I just will not find myself within your vicinity if I could choose it at all times.
Yeah. I feel like I would definitely tell someone to definitely pick the easier route for sure, especially if they don't have to do the most. Like, if you don't got to do the most, girl, do it. Like, what are you doing? But then there's a difference where you're picking the easier route for something that you actually want to do, or picking the easier route just because it's the easier route. If it's not something you want to do, then there should be no reason that you're doing that just because it's easy. So it's like,
yeah, I like that.
You're doing the easy route for what? What's benefiting you? Because if you're not going to like what you're going to be doing, then there should be no reason that you're even choosing that. And you should know that for yourself, that that's not even a good idea to do. So, yeah.
I love that. I love that take, actually. I really, really do. Great point. I don't think I've ever, judged someone for taking the easy route unless it would be in a situation like what Amani just said, because that is a great point. But if I'm being very candid, I think that at moments, especially when I'm in the like real rough and tough, moments in life, I do find myself, kind of comparison kills, right? Jonathan McReynolds said it.
Yes.
And so I think I have, in situations found myself looking at people that I know personally, be able to, accomplish so much, within the same amount of years that we were both given on this earth. And I know it's because of, connections and different things like that, and never hating on them, always congratulating them, but just being like, if only I. And again, you never know what somebody has to, go through, experience, or what comes with, getting help in different situations, whatever. But I definitely, if I'm being very candid, I think that that's something that I have found myself doing, and I'm very intentional about shifting my mindset as soon as it starts to get into that if I place, because baby, you don't know what they had to do to get there, and that's not for you to find out. Continue down, the way that you're going, and it'll work out as God sees fit. So it's just that. It's that simple for me now.
Yeah. I think mine is I feel the same way, but with me, it's kind of flipped a little bit more. So I start to set unrealistic expectations on myself. Like, okay, they've gotten this done and they're 27, I'm 25. Within the next 2 years, I got to get all this done. So that way I'm at this point. And that's now been based off of where they're at in life, as opposed to where I really want to go, where I really want to be.
Right.
And where I'm realistically at right now. Thank God I've been delivered. I have matured past that point. I'm delivered. Mm-hmm. But I've matured past that point. But I definitely get that.
No, 100%. Is there any last thoughts, or are all hearts and minds clear?
I was actually going to ask, well, I guess I don't really even know how to ask a question, but like for you, Tay, you've grown up and went to schools in a predominantly white town compared to like me. So I don't really know exactly what I'm like asking for, but like, what is your like, I guess, perspective of that type of lifestyle? Like, it's definitely completely different from me because I grew up, in Norwalk, went to Norwalk public schools. So although a lot of my friends and stuff growing up were Hispanic because I was in like a mano program and things, and then like middle school, and I did cheer, and around that time, it's predominantly white sport. It's not really, I was actually talking about this with my friend today. Like, I didn't really connect with my Black culture outside of attending summer camp at Carver. Like, other than that, I wasn't really around like Black friends or none of that until probably like high school, college really, but like, dabbled in it in high school. And that was just my first time having that encounter, just based on how my school was set up and who I was with in my classes. Literally my entire life, from like kindergarten till 8th grade, I was in elite Spanish classes. So most of my, people were not even Black. So just, what is your perspective just growing up in a predominantly white town? Like, that's basically my question to you. I'm just curious.
Great question, actually. So for those that don't know, I guess let's dive into a little bit of background on T. I grew up in New Canaan, Connecticut, and if you're from Connecticut, you know that New Canaan is a predominantly white town. As Deke said, I probably graduated with, I could probably count on one hand, maybe two, in a class of 300 something kids, of how many kids were not white, specifically Black. And I think because I left the Norwalk school system so early, I went to Fox Run for a little bit of time. I started going to school in New Canaan in 3rd grade. And so you're still, relatively young in 3rd grade. I think that it wasn't really a shock for me then, because, you aren't thinking that way, at least in the moment. I wasn't. There was a bunch of other things going on. So I think from then on, it just felt like it was the norm. Obviously, I know it wasn't the norm because I was coming to Norwalk all the time and like being around my family and stuff like that. So I was still engrossed in my Black culture. But in terms of just being at school and stuff, it just felt normal. There were definitely situations that made it very evident that it wasn't, just this like thing that you don't have to think about, and it's not, reality. If I'm being honest, I think that my experience is a little bit jaded because I'm Italian. And I'm not even trying to be funny by saying that, but there was a difference between me and some other friends that I had who have darker skin than me. Not saying that they were like outcasted or anything like that, but some of them experienced things that I just didn't experience. If I'm being, really truthful about that. So I think that for me, it was just kind of like like I see it, I mean, I'm not one to really try to make friends and stuff like that anyways. So I'm cool with the people I'm cool with. I have associates, but I definitely witnessed, I grew up with people who had luxury cars parked up in the high school parking lot. Like, not no little luxury cars, like Aston Martins and stuff. Like, so it never fazed me because I just generally don't care. But I know other people that it just kind of felt like, oh, you're showing off, or, oh, but it's like, this is these people's lives, real life too. Like, this isn't like they're just, yeah, they're showing off because you're in high school and you want to show that your parents own a Maserati, right? But this is these people's lives. Like, this is really how they live on the day to day. Obviously, that wasn't my life, like I wasn't poor, but I definitely didn't live, the lifestyle that they did. I remember one time I was in middle school and I was in theater. I loved theater in middle school. But I was in theater, and a couple of my theater friends, all white, of course, they wanted me to go to their house. This girl, she was the sweetest person. Her mom, sweetest person, so down to earth, so humble. Like, you wouldn't think, obviously they live in New Canaan, so like 9 times out of 10, they got a little bit of something, but you wouldn't think the magnitude of what they had, because unfortunately you did have the ones that were a little bit more of a show off, but they were so humble, so down to earth. And I remember going to their house, And it actually, I think that right there was a culture shock for me. That, like, I went to their house, we pull up, it's gated, like down a long driveway, pull up, it's a beautiful home, like a little pool house. Like, it was just gorgeous, nice. So spent the day there. Mommy ended up calling me, and she, later on that day, and she's like, hey, I'm here to pick you up. So I'm like, oh, her mom said she's already met the girls' parents and stuff before through theater. But I was letting her know that Miss So-and-so said for you to, come through the gate, come up to the house, blah, blah, blah. And so Mommy's like, well, I'll come through the gate, but I'm not coming inside. So I'm like, well, she's asking you to come inside. Like, she wants to show you the house, blah, blah, blah. And Mommy's like, I have a headscarf on. You already know. So it was like, I have a headscarf on. I'm not getting out of this car. And her mom was just so persistent and just like, no, like, tell her to come inside. Like, we don't care, blah, 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 whatever. So she ended up coming inside super, like, kind of just, I don't want to say she was embarrassed, but just kind of like feeling out of place. And I feel like that was a significant moment for me. I think that's when it shifted. I really realized like where I actually live. I think like throughout the years growing up, it never really, but I think that's when it shifted. And I realized, oh, this is people really live like this here. Like, this is really normal. So then I think it was just kind of normalized for me also, because I just was like, oh, okay, well, everybody just kind of lives this life. And it's okay that I don't, because I'm happy with what I have. So I think if you were a child that, longed for more, then growing up in a town like mine would have been detrimental to your life. But because I was genuinely content with my life and the life that my mom provided for us, it was just like, yeah, these people are rich here. I'm not rich, but they definitely are for sure.
I think that
yeah,
is actually so important to know that the grass is green where you water it, and cut your own grass and maintain your own grass. Don't worry about the next person's grass. Don't worry about what your grass could look like. Like, literally just water and focus on you. And I think that is a big factor on how people can kind of break those generational curses or whatever it is, like cycles and things that we, typically run into. But yeah, that's just interesting, because I was talking to my friend today, and I was like, actually, because we were talking about the pod and stuff, because we have true fans out here. And I was like, actually, I barely even know how, like, you grew up in school, though. Like, yes, how you grew up, because we grew up together, but like, when it comes to school, I've never went to your school. I've never went to school with you. I've never experienced life with you in that way. So like, it's like that part of you is like a whole different person that I never knew. It's just so interesting. It is a whole different person. It's like a whole different person. Like, even for you, like,
I'm always authentically me. But
yeah,
it's just so it kind of is a whole different person, because like me, I code switch no matter what. That's just me. That's me at work. Like, just in any different situation, I code switch based on what I'm around to what makes me feel comfortable, because I also don't like attention on me. So it's like, I'm going to do what I need to do. Which is so different
because you're a Leo.
Kind of fit in. So, it's like, it definitely was a different person, but I was still the same way in terms of like, didn't really care to make friends. People liked me. Like, I had associates. I don't want to say I was like the token Black girl, but there wasn't that many. So, I cheered, you know what I mean? I was really popular, involved in school,
which is normal for us.
So it's like everyone knew me.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like everyone knew me, but I would never say they were my friends.
Yeah.
Like, I don't talk to anyone.
That's actually interesting.
And I don't desire to.
That's interesting, because I don't know either. Like, not one of you. I've never went to school with either of you. Outside of Amani, her and I went to camp together for summers and multiple summers and multiple summers. And like that, other than that, never went to school with any one of you. So don't even know the type of life and or stories you have from that time, because we never even talked about school. Like, when we hung out, we weren't like, oh, this happened at school. Like, school was non-existent, and we were like doing everything else.
Because that's not real life.
School was whack. Them people wasn't on nothing. Wasn't nothing exciting. Y'all stories was way more. Your stories, Didi, was exciting for me, because there wasn't none of that happened at New Canaan High. Okay. I'm sure Winter can relate.
No, literally. Okay, so literally, but The difference with me is I jumped around a lot. I went to elementary school in a very, very diverse environment, Norwalk. Then I went to middle school in a predominantly Black and Hispanic environment in the South. And then I went to high school in, I'm not even going to say predominantly, in a white town. And then I went to college in New York, very diverse. But by then, like, I know who I am, and you just kind of gravitate to your people. But I've always been like that. Like, I've always been the person who is super nice, super friendly, on the surface. I don't like all that extra stuff. We're not gonna be friends or nothing like that. But
No, thank you.
I always find my people. And so it doesn't matter what environment I am in. And much like Tanaijah, I think we talk about this a lot. I'm a code switch no matter who I'm around, where I'm at, because much like Tanaijah said, it's about my comfortability. And because I can. Like, I quite literally can. It's like being able to speak multiple languages. I'm not going to go to Mexico and speak English if I know how to speak Spanish. Like, I'm not going to go to China and speak English when I know how to speak Mandarin. Like, that's how I see it. That's how I've always been. So, honestly, get in where you fit in. The world keeps revolving around you. And I think I understood that from a very young age because I've been in all these different environments where I wasn't just like everybody else.
I like that point you made too, because, well, specifically, my partner makes fun of me because of how I speak Spanish, but I quite literally grew up around Hispanic people, so I know properly how to roll my R's and how to pronounce words properly with the accent. So I'm not going to speak English or speak it in a way like an English person would because I know how to speak it properly. So I like that actually that you actually gave that point. Culture, just like, I guess the last thing before you guys, want to wrap it up. But for me, a culture shock that I've had was when I went to college. And my freshman year of college, I went to Central. Now, Central now in 2025 is not the same Central that was 10 years ago in 2015, 2016. It's completely different. It's way more diverse now than it has ever been, probably, because of how they started to recruit for football and things like that. But at that time, the most Black people that went to that school were on the football team and or basketball team, like played sports, right? And I was a cheerleader. Now, this was the first time that I was on a cheerleading team, and it was me and Taylor, which is my brother's sister, like my brother's best friend's sister. And we were the only two Black people. And Taylor is half and half. She's white and Black. So, but that's it. I've never been on a cheer team with like all white cheer team like that, in high school. Norwalk High is diverse, school. So I had Hispanic people or, other Black people. So that was my first time that I've experienced it with something that I love, like cheerleading, and it kind of put me in a weird place because the people that I encountered weren't the best. And I say that because they were the type that did a lot of talking about each other behind each other's back. And in that way, it makes it kind of like difficult for me to want to be a part of it. Because if you're like talking about someone that's supposed to be your best friend behind their back, to me, God only knows what vibes you have, when it comes to me. So that was the first time that I actually experienced something where I felt kind of uncomfortable where I was. And I, took myself out of it. I stopped cheering there. But that's my first time ever experiencing something like that made me uncomfortable based on the fact that I was the only Black person. Other than that, I felt like I've always just like had no care in the world, like didn't really care. And in the beginning, I didn't care. It just got to a point where it wasn't giving family. It wasn't giving loyal. It wasn't giving respect. So it just made me start feeling uncomfortable with me being in the picture.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because that just made me think about, and then I'll wrap it up. That just made me think about something that I talked to Winter a lot about is The fact that now in my current job, I've moved to the South, and there's maybe 3, 4, 2 white females, 2 white males in my office. That's it. Everybody else is black. Everybody else is black, literally. And so that was kind of, in that way, it was a culture shock for me to be around so many of my people. But it feels like, even though I work for a government organization, it feels like I'm at home, kind of like
I
a
was
mom
going
and
to
pop
say
shop.
that's different. That is like
Yes.
oh my gosh, I'm home type culture shock. Like I've never been in an environment where it just felt like it was made for me.
Yes.
I get that though.
100%. That's exactly how it feels every day when I go to work. Like, yes, I'm showing up for work. And obviously when we get into our, board meetings and stuff like that, business is business. But when it's just regular business hours and we're floating around the office, it literally just feels like I'm walking around my uncle's house. Like, that may sound crazy, but that's literally how it feels. Like, in the most appropriate way possible. But anyways, with all of that being said, I hope that you people out there in the world that are listening, you received something from this episode. I hope that you can start opening up your mind to the ways that you are handling your struggle, or the ways that you are choosing to stay in struggles that you have a way out of. And I didn't even talk to the girls about this, but we are going to be launching, I'm going to put this out on social media by the time this episode airs, that we're going to launch our email address that will allow you to send in your stories, whether it's on a topic that you've heard us discuss anywhere from episode 1 all the way till now. Anything you want to share, anything that happens in your life, just go ahead and send it. We're going to put the email. By the time this episode goes out, it'll be out and shared on our social media platforms, and you will know where to send this to. And please, now, y'all, I ain't trying to limit how long the story could be, but please, if it's going to be extra long, send a video, because I'm not trying to read 5 pages of a story. Okay?
Right. Just summarize it. Just summarize it the best you can.
Please do.
And it will be for us to like react and or give you advice or like things from our, one, unsolicited advice. Like, it's advice from us and our opinions and how we would react and or move. So it's completely anonymous. It's not, names will not be out there if you send in, but it just is another way for us to engage with you all.
Yes. So, like I said, I didn't tell them that we were going to announce this on this episode, but we are. So I'm making the executive decision, and I'm glad that they're on board. So we can't wait to hear your stories and then for you to hear our responses. I know Winter was trying to say something, but we can't hear her right now. So I'll speak on her behalf and just say that we're so excited for you to send in your stories. And she will make sure that she reads them because she's a great reader. She loves reading. Oh, if you want to send in a 5-page story, Winter will be doing the reading, sorry. And then she'll relay the information to us. I hope that sounds good to you all. She said no.
She said, who said that? Who said that?
But okay.
We can hear you.
Y'all.
I don't know why.
Oh, can we hear her now? Oh, yes, we can hear you now. We can hear your fan too, but we can hear you though.
If you want to send in your letter, your story, send it in. Highly recommend it. I will not be reading it though.
She will for sure.
But
she'll give us the spark notes, okay? I promise.
I can. Oh yes, I can do that.
Or we could just copy and paste.
We're reading them verbatim. And if it's really that bad, I can read it. We can all take turns reading stories, but we have to read them verbatim because some of that stuff is going to be so funny.
If it's 5 pages long, we cannot read that on.
Oh no,
that's what I'm saying. Y'all want to read 5 pages? That's gonna be the whole episode,
guys.
That's what I'm saying. She could do those ones. Gonna type spark notes.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's gonna type that much.
People have life stories out here.
Because some of the letters I'll be getting at work,
I'll just
I gotta need to know all that. That don't got nothing to do.
I'll just do a sample, copy and paste, put it into Chat GPT, and have Chat
I was
GPT
about
do
to
it.
say,
Okay.
summarize this for me.
All right, y'all. We are going to open this lineup. I hope you guys are as excited for it as we are to receive it. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to yet another episode of Group Chat Calling. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Thanks for hanging with us on Group Chat Calling. Ready to make it official? Join the group and be a part of the convo every Wednesday. Hit that follow button so you never miss a call. Catch you next week.